I was there. I was here the whole time. There we go. We're live, I think. Oh, and Twitch. Let's hit Twitch. God, my hair is a mess. Okay. We're there. Beautiful. Beautiful. Welcome back. Welcome back. We had a little bonus stream earlier on today. And we are ready for another one. Am I here? Yeah, there we go. My volume is on. I can see. We're good. Lovely. You're late. I'm not late. I was right there. I was right there. It was just loaded. And also I needed to grab something quickly. When does quality start? We got about half an hour or so, 25 minutes. Till we really delve into it. Hello, Sally. How's it going once again? Hello, Joe Potter. Hello, Divi. Hello, Eggmummerman. Eggmummerman. Brent, how's it going? In an hour? No, it's not an hour. Half an hour. Is it an hour? Have I put this on for the wrong time? It's not happened. It's not the first time it would have happened. I've definitely had it before where I've messed up timings. I think we're all there. Love the podcast. Thank you. My favorite dinner time content. Well, if you want some more where that came from, sign up to the Patreon. I think we're heading towards 100 Patreons already on the Crash Happy Patreon. We are also at 10,000 subscribers, possibly even like 11,000 subscribers now. So like if we could hit 15K by the end of the year, that would be absolutely ridiculous. If you haven't checked it out, well worth a watch. Well worth a watch. Literally Divi saying right there. And I mean, I get bullied on it. So if you want to see me get bullied, throw that way. No, I think it's just fun. It's just fun. I'm more than happy to be the butt of the joke, I think, sometimes. And they remind me of that. Hello, Talker as well. Hello, Bruno. Love that Lego McLaren. Thank you. It's quite old now. I think I made this, I don't know, maybe like 2 years ago. I got it for a Christmas. Whenever it came out, it was a Christmas gift. Then we got the little, the other McLaren underneath, the Senna McLaren. Senna right there. My dad's helmet. YouTube play button. It's a snazzy little shelf we got going on. Can't remember what's underneath. Oh, Mercedes. The old microphone that now no longer works, that started this whole channel. A Game Boy. And a couple of little mini helmets. Bold prediction, Sainz will be around 7th place. Is that bold? Is that bold? He's been pretty decent as Carlos Sainz of late. I mean, he's qualified on the 2nd row of the grid in Vegas. So, I don't know if a 7th place is that bold of a prediction, Brent. You got to go higher. Carlos Sainz, top 5. That would be bold. I feel like 7th place needs to be a little bit higher. Do you think the race will end with a 3-way tie? What, they all come across the finish line at the exact same time? That would be insane. That would be absolutely insane if they all came across the line at the exact same moment. Be interesting to see how the FIA decided it. Bolder prediction. McLaren out in Q2. There we go, Brent. There we go. We're riling him up. We're riling him up. You can get your predictions in, actually, over on the community tab. We normally do the full prediction run through tomorrow during qualifying, or sometimes we leave it up until the Grand Prix. It depends how much there is to really talk about. But because we had the extra stream earlier on today, if you did miss it, yes, we were talking about FP1, but actually it kind of became a little bit more of a podcast / just chatting whilst FP1 was on. We talked about Red Bull's driver future. We talked about Adrian Newey going to, or stepping up at Aston Martin, I should say, not going to, stepping up into being a team principal at Aston Martin. We talked about the championship battle, of course, between Norris, Max, and Piastri. We just really broke down all of the big news. So if you do want to kind of go back and watch the Free Practice 1 stream, as I say, it's more of a podcast than actual Free Practice 1 stream, but it also has the Free Practice 1 data there if you want to see that too. So worth checking out. And of course, we had this week's video, which you've got more than enough time. If you maybe want to watch the video before you come back and watch the qualifying with me, I wouldn't say no. It's, click that link, top link in the description. It was a little bit of a controversial video for some reason. And if we hit 2,000 likes on that video, I will be doing an extra more content of that nature, but on a massive, massive scale. Podcast off the chain. Thank you so much, Sally. Appreciate it. Crash Happy's where it's at. Feel like it's a Formula One podcast in inverted commas. We talk about Formula One a little bit. Hi, Kira. Please read my comment. Does Williams have a chance for a podium? Not this weekend. Not this weekend, I don't think. Although I would have said that before Vegas. And, well, it ended up being that Carlos Sainz didn't. But he qualified very well. I don't think anybody in the midfield really has a chance at a podium this weekend. I think it's going to be very Piastri, Verstappen, Norris heavy at the top step of the Formula One grid. It's just which order they end up being is the thing that really we need to talk about. What time is sprint qualifying? We are 20 minutes away, 21 minutes away from the start of sprint qualifying. Do I reckon Lando will take the championship at Qatar or later, or maybe not even at all? I don't think he'll take it in Qatar. I've just got a feeling, Max has been really good here. Even last season when McLaren were kind of coming towards the peak of their powers at the end of last year, we were discussing, can Lando Norris close in the championship battle on Verstappen? He wasn't quite able to do it in the end because of how good the start of the season was from Max and how he continued to deliver. But it was sort of the end of last year that made us stand up and realize, McLaren are going to be the team to beat this season. And still, Max Verstappen was able to go on and win the Qatar Grand Prix. Okay, there were a few things that fell in his favor. Lando Norris's qualifying wasn't amazing, and he picked up a penalty. But Max Verstappen was very quick here in Qatar a season ago. He was quick here a couple of seasons ago as well. Obviously, that was 2023 when the Red Bull car was quick everywhere, so difficult to really pick that one out. But Max Verstappen has been very good here over the last couple of seasons, so makes sense that he'll be good here again. And Red Bull are kind of coming towards a peak where we maybe weren't expecting them to be. In fact, I found a really good season split statistics thing earlier on today. So if you look at the first, in fact, can I share this somehow? I think it's worth looking at. The momentum is certainly with, that's Sao Paulo. Where did we get that from? Let's go for Chrome. Yeah. Oh, it's a little bit. It's a little bit off. Oh, no, is it off? Yeah, it's a little bit off. Let me share this with you because it's actually very interesting. Doesn't quite fit in the box, but there we go. We'll do this. Bang. If we look at the first 7 races of the season, second 7 races of the season, third sort of chunk of the season, 15 to 22, so 8 races of the season since the summer break. If we kind of look at the points split, Oscar Piastri started the season really strongly, 146 points. That was when Lando Norris was kind of a little bit iffy with the McLaren car. He wasn't massively happy with it. And Max Verstappen was kind of in and amongst it sometimes, but the Red Bull car also wasn't 100% up and running, it would feel like. Then you look at the middle portion of the season, Lando Norris started to click with the McLaren car. Oscar Piastri kind of struggling a little bit more than his teammate in terms of his position in the championship. And, Oscar Piastri not struggling in terms of his position in the championship. He managed to still maintain the lead over Lando Norris, but Lando Norris scoring just a few more points than Oscar Piastri. It was very very even between the two McLaren cars from sort of race 8 to race 14. It went back and forth quite often, didn't it? With like Lando winning a race, then Oscar winning a race, then Lando winning a couple of races, then Oscar winning a race. Like, it did very much tennis match in the middle stint of the season from races 8 to 14. Whereas Max Verstappen, that's when he had his real sort of downtime in the season. You see him right down there behind even Charles Leclerc and George Russell in terms of points scored in that middle stint of the season from race 8 to race 14. I mean, Hungary in particular, I know it was round 14 and right before the summer break, but was absolutely atrocious for Max Verstappen and Red Bull. They were so far off of it. And in fact, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris were so on it, right? You go back to Hungary and they were dominating the field and winning races by ridiculous margins. Austria, the same. Like, Lando Norris was untouchable in Austria in that middle stint of the season. And then we're kind of into this third stint of the season where Oscar was leading still, but Max Verstappen has just come out of nowhere. 179 points Max Verstappen has since the summer break. And remember, it started off with a Dutch Grand Prix where Oscar Piastri still managed to get the victory, and Lando Norris was on for a second place until he DNF'd with an engine problem. So Max Verstappen has turned it around, you know, places like Monza and Baku where he was so dominant and has just been able to get the absolute maximum out of that Red Bull car. So all of the momentum is with Max Verstappen right now. Whereas you look at Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, I suppose you could argue Lando in more recent events. You know, Mexico was insanely quick. The US was a good weekend as well. Brazil was a very good weekend. So you can look at those races and say Lando Norris is kind of on it. But Max Verstappen, you look at that points, it's ridiculous, right? Whereas Oscar Piastri has fallen down to 82 points. George Russell even outscoring the two McLaren cars in the last 8 races that we've had since the summer break. So it just goes to show that this season has ebbed and flowed massively. So coming into this, you would say, well, we're back to circuits where Oscar Piastri is strong, like circuits very similar to the first 7 races that we have, you know, Bahrain and tracks like Australia, you could even say, are a little bit like Qatar, although Qatar is its own circuit, whereas obviously Australia more of a street track really. But these sort of high downforce circuits that do really suit Oscar Piastri and were similar to the Oscar Piastri start to the season where he was the most dominant driver. So you could argue that Oscar Piastri has that in his favor going into the final 2 races of the season. Obviously Lando Norris has just been the most consistent of the 3. Lando second fastest in the first stint of the season, fastest in the middle stint of the season, and then third fastest in the final stint of the season. So hasn't had the ups and downs, you know, of Piastri and Verstappen as much, has kind of maintained at least a podium place in all 3 chunks of the season. So Lando Norris has that consistency on his side, and of course a 24-point lead in the championship. And then Max Verstappen just kind of has the momentum on his side, right? He is quick everywhere he goes, and he's been able to turn this second half of the season into what feels like just a ridiculous run of form where every single weekend he delivers the absolute maximum inside of that Red Bull car. And finally, the Red Bull car has also clicked with him, where the Red Bull is delivering him a package that is capable of winning races and dominating weekends if it clicks. So I think genuinely it's one of those title battles where, yes, I know Lando Norris has a 24-point gap, and it would be a pretty insane couple of races if Lando Norris doesn't win the championship. But we've seen a pretty insane season so far, right? Like, it would be insane, but also it wouldn't surprise me as much as maybe it should, because it has been such an ebb and flow throughout the season so far. McLaren double DSQ ripped the wind from Lando's sails. True, you could say that they've kind of lost a little bit of momentum there. You look at the points they would have dropped. Like, George Russell's kind of jumped into second in that third stint of the season standings, but Lando would be above George pretty comfortably, sorry, if he hadn't have been disqualified, and also had finished the Netherlands Grand Prix. In fact, had Lando Norris finished in the Netherlands and finished in Las Vegas without the DNF and the disqualification, he would already have the title in his hands. So Norris has kind of got one hand on the trophy already, in that it should have been his in another reality. You know, we could go through like the alternate universes of Formula One. In another reality, Lando Norris is already the world champion at this point because he didn't have those 2 races where he just got very unlucky. But then in the other side, you know, there's also another world where Max Verstappen has just even a slightly better middle stint of the season. Like, if he'd have scored, well, let's say he scored as much as Charles Leclerc rather than the 63, he managed to score 90 points. Max Verstappen would now be leading the world championship. So like Max Verstappen, just that middle stint of the season where he dropped off compared to the rest, even if he just had a slightly better, like a Charles Leclerc middle stint of the season, I don't think anybody said Charles Leclerc was being absolutely phenomenal during that middle part of the campaign, then Max Verstappen would be leading the championship right now, and it would be a very different scenario, right? So I think this is just so interesting. The fact that Andrea Seller almost pointed it out earlier on today, the fact it's ebbed and flowed the way that it has. But yeah, you make a good point. If my mum had balls, she would be my dad. There's no point in catastrophizing and being skeptical of where and what and how, because we're in a scenario where Lando Norris leads the championship by 24 points. Piastri is behind on 366. Verstappen is behind on 366. They are the 3 players still in the game. George Russell, the closest man behind, on 294. The 2 Ferraris, Charles Leclerc kind of doing the majority of the job. 226 for Charles Leclerc, 152 for Lewis Hamilton. Then Kimi Antonelli sort of finally consolidating 7th place, it feels like, because 137 points. I mean, definitely consolidating 7th place. Alex Albon is not going to catch him from there, even though it was looking sort of just after the summer break like maybe Antonelli would drop to 8th place in the Drivers' Championship. Luckily, he's had a little bit better sort of end to the season. That middle stint slump came to an end. And then Isaac Hadjar, Nico Hülkenberg, Carlos Sainz, all battling it out for 9th place in the standings. Couple of points between them. Like, it's going to be very tight between those 3. Ollie Behrman has jumped up into 12th in the standings, which is insane as well. Alonso and Stroll dropped down a little bit for the Aston Martin. Lawson and Ocon in the mix as well. Tsunoda all the way down there in 17th place on 28 points. Gasly 22 points. Bortoletto on 19. Franco Colapinto, the only driver still on the grid yet to have scored a point. Abu Dhabi P1 by Norris last year. Piastri P9 or P10 due to a spin at turn 1. That was because of a collision with Max Verstappen as well, let's not forget. So Verstappen involved in that. I'm not sure Piastri and Verstappen would risk that much this time around because they're kind of both against Lando Norris. You know, Lando Norris kind of has to battle the 2 of them, whereas Verstappen probably won't be worrying about Piastri too much. Piastri won't be worrying about Verstappen too much because they're both in the hunt of Lando Norris, right? They're both looking at Lando. Whereas Lando has to keep his eye on Oscar and on Max. We do have the sprint qualifying rules in place here. So sprint qualifying means that they have to go onto the medium tyre for Q1. Still 5 cars eliminated, but then the medium tyre also has to be used in Q2. Then once those 10 cars have been eliminated, the 5 in Q1, the 5 in Q2, we finally get onto the soft compound tyre. And in terms of pace during free practice, I can show you how it ended. So most of the teams doing quite a long stint on the hard compound tyres to begin with, and then coming out with the last sort of 12, 15 minutes left on the clock to do some soft compound tyre running right at the end. And Piastri and Norris were the quickest of the 2. So Verstappen looking on the back foot initially in free practice. Of course, we don't know whether or not Verstappen was running a slightly different setup, but we'll have to wait and see. Hello, Sarah. How's it going? Fernando Alonso was the 3rd fastest man in free practice. So Fernando Alonso 3rd place, Carlos Sainz fourth place. The two Spaniards there in the mix, which is why I'm saying, Brent, you got to go for Carlos Sainz qualifying above P7. P3 is at play. He was there in Vegas. Why not again? Isaac Hadjar down in fifth place. Verstappen was sixth place. Albon and Leclerc, seventh and eighth. Stroll and Antonelli inside of the top 10. I mean, it's looking fairly competitive. You look at the fact that Leclerc, Antonelli, Hamilton, even Russell, sort of properly in the mix, down behind some of the midfield cars. It's probably looking a little bit less exciting if you're a Haas fan or an Alpine fan. But apart from that, it's a real just sort of malaise of cars in the midfield that all look very, very competitive indeed and could all just deliver. Like we've seen over the course of the season so far, when it comes to qualifying, it is one of the most competitive seasons in terms of qualifying I think we've ever had. Maybe even the most competitive qualifying in terms of we get your Lando Guna. I'm really not. I would like to see Lando in, but I'm just a McLaren fan. I just want to see either of the two McLarens win. Would I prefer it to be Lando Norris? I think everyone at McLaren would prefer it to be Lando Norris because he's been there, done it, and been part of the team for longer, right? But at the same time, if Piastri managed to win the championship, it's not my fault Piastri has dropped from where he was. Video on 26 predictions. Oh, depends what you mean. Driver predictions, championship predictions. What kind of 26 predictions would you like to see? I'm sure I'll do a few prediction videos on 2026. Not sure whether I'm going to leave it until testing or not, because it feels like an absolute craziness to try and predict 2026 without testing, but maybe I'll do both. You never know. Let me know in the chat. What kind of predictions would you like to see? What kind of prediction videos would you want to see from 2026? Like driver predictions. Do you want me to simulate the season 1,000 times? I don't know. I'm going to do that because there's no F1 26 game coming. So I'd have to try and use maybe an updated version of F1 25. See what I can do there. Lando will win. Lando will win. Oof. Lots of Lando wins in the chat. People are believing this season it is going to be Lando's year. Hasn't led the championship led the championship right at the beginning, but hadn't led the championship between Saudi Arabia and Mexico was when he finally took the championship back from his teammate. Max Verstappen hasn't led the championship at all throughout this year. Like, it would be almost Sebastian Vettel-esque of Max Verstappen, wouldn't it, to not lead the championship at all and then win it right at the death in Abu Dhabi. We've seen it before. We've seen it before. Max got to do this. Max will win. Lando DNF. There's a lot of Max fans, a lot of Lando fans. We could give Piastri some hope too, no? Poor Piastri. It's lost that momentum, it feels like, Oscar Piastri. But as I say, we're going into two tracks that really do suit him. Going back into tracks that are much more competitive and back into tracks where we've seen him be a lot better before. So maybe we do end up seeing the best of Oscar Piastri to come. There's two YouTube streams. There is two YouTube streams. One of them is horizontal, and one of them is vertical. One of them is like a short stream. So if you're on the short stream, come and join us in the mainstream. The mainstream is where it's at. The mainstream, you get a little bit more information. The mainstream, you get a little bit more of a breakdown of what's actually happening. Over on the short stream, you just kind of get the data that I could make fit onto the screen. Transfer predictions. Oh, I cannot wait to do my transfer predictions for 26. I feel like it's going to be an absolute bedlam. I honestly feel like there could be loads of drivers moving because they'll be in such a weird position going into 2027, because if you think about it, a lot of drivers tried to get themselves sorted for 2026, but not all of the teams can be good, right? Not all of the teams can be quick. And therefore, there's going to be some drivers that are very disappointed in the team that they've ended up at. And there's going to be some big drivers that probably want to move. Like, if Ferrari don't deliver, could maybe even see Charles Leclerc jump ship. Like, Lewis Hamilton certainly isn't going to stick around. If Red Bull aren't quick, I think Max Verstappen's put himself in a scenario where he could definitely move around. Maybe even if McLaren aren't the McLaren of before, you know, especially after this season where Lando and Oscar have been, well, maybe Oscar more so than Lando, feels like he's been a little bit left by the wayside, maybe we do see Oscar Piastri make a move to another team. Like, I don't think that is absolutely insane to say. I feel like it could certainly happen going into 2026. And then beyond that, you've got the midfield teams. You know, Nico Hulkenberg isn't getting any younger. What do our Racing Bulls end up doing? We don't even know what they're doing for this season, let alone for next season at Racing Bulls. What happens to Kimi Antonelli? Does he stick around? Does Carlos Sainz stick with Williams if Williams don't step up? You know, there's so many questions that are yet to be answered going into 2026 that it could be really, really interesting to see where those drivers end up. And actually, you know, if Ferrari do end up losing some drivers, where does that leave Haas? How do they replace Ollie Behrman? Maybe a big team goes for like a Gabriel Bortoleto. What happens to him then? What happens to Audi if they manage to sort of lose Gabriel Bortoleto to another team on the grid? Does Colapinto keep his seat? Does Gasly keep his seat? There's so much interesting stuff that's going to happen in 2026. But we are still in 2025 for now. We've got 2 race weekends left to go. 33 points on offer to the drivers this weekend with the sprint race. But we're going to build up to that first with some sprint qualifying. Shall we move over to the slightly more detailed board in which I've made this slightly too long and I've made this slightly too wide? There we are. The Qatar circuit in front of us. What is it? Lusail? The Lusail circuit in front of us. 16 corners. Of course, built more for MotoGP, this circuit. So not an out-and-out Formula One track, you would say. A little bit twisty. They've added some extra gravel traps throughout this the year since we last raced here in Qatar. So those additional gravel traps, in fact, being put to good use in FP1. We saw a few drivers testing out the gravel and seeing how much it could do. The Ditto circuit. Yeah, it does look like a Ditto, doesn't it? Really does look like a Ditto. Where's Formula Duck when you need him? The man knows a lot more about Pokemon than maybe even I. Oscar, in my opinion, hasn't been left by the wayside. Closed mouths don't get fed. It's got to be hungry enough for it. Okay. This is an early stream? Is it? I mean, we're a minute away. We're not that early. We are about to get underway here in the first qualifying session of the weekend. The first 8 points available to these drivers will be tomorrow during the sprint race. But first, we've got to set the grid for it. Medium tyres being strapped onto the cars on the grid. Here we go then. Jenson Button. Type a win if Max Verstappen wins this season. Why is it Jenson Button? Why have you... What? Here we are then. We're about to get underway. Green light being flickered. 12 minutes on the clock. And Formula One is back underway in Qatar once again. We're back here with a competitive qualifying session straight off the bat. Only first free practice session. An hour the teams have had to set up for this. We saw some very quick times from the McLaren teammates at the end of free practice 1. But Max Verstappen is the first man out on track. 24 points between him and a 5th championship in a row. Something we've only ever seen from Michael Schumacher in Formula One when he won 5 titles back to back to back to back to back in the early 2000s. Max Verstappen looking to match Michael. Coming around turn 11 now. Gasly is out on track as well. Tsunoda, Leclerc, Hamilton, Sainz, Ocon and Behrman. The drivers making their way through the first sector. Colapinto has come out very close to the rear end of Ollie Behrman. Interesting tactic from the Alpine as Isaac Hadjar reasonably leaves a little bit of a gap to the 2 cars ahead. And Alex Albon is out on track as well. Max Verstappen is going to start his first flying lap and the first flying lap of the weekend. The sparks flying off the back of the Red Bull car. Of course, both of the McLarens disqualified last weekend because of that plank wear to the rear end of the McLaren cars. Max Verstappen needs to be a little bit careful he doesn't join them in the disqualifications for this year. The sparks were flying, but I'm sure Red Bull have done their calculations on it as he comes towards the end of the first sector. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, his championship rivals, have also joined the circuit. They're on their warm-up lap, though. Hulkenberg and Bortoleto also getting out on track. Charles Leclerc starting a flying lap in the Ferrari behind, but we'll keep our eyes on Max Verstappen as he sets the standard for the other 19 drivers on the grid, coming through turns 9 and 10. It's a very twisty middle part of the track. You have to get absolutely every single corner perfect, and then you look at 12, 13, and 14 relentlessly coming at you in these Formula One cars. The amount of speed that they attack these corners with in the final sector. Then we carry it through turn 15, the looping turn 16 onto the pit straight, and beautifully shown by Max Verstappen just how to do it, and setting a 1:22.258. That is the lap time for everybody else to beat. Charles Leclerc has beaten the Red Bull car through the middle part of the lap as he goes purple with a 27.7. Charles Leclerc, the Monegasque driver, pretty scathing about Ferrari recently. So is his teammate Lewis Hamilton. They've both been disappointed in the Scuderia's performance, dropping to 4th place in the constructors' standings. And Isaac Hadjar has just gone quickest of anybody through the first sector. Charles Leclerc just under a 10th slower than Max Verstappen overall, slots into 2nd place. Tsunoda was 3rd. He was 4.5 tenths off his teammate, though, and Gasly not really setting a respective flying lap time. Lewis Hamilton a 2nd off the pace in his Ferrari. That won't bring a smile back to his face anytime soon. Carlos Sainz, the man he replaced, displaces Lewis Hamilton. He goes 4th fastest. Then Esteban Ocon comes across the line to improve even further. Here comes his teammate Ollie Behrman, and Behrman goes 3rd fastest of anybody. Lando Norris has gone quickest of anyone through the first sector, whilst Isaac Hadjar continues his incredible flying lap. Let's see what Hadjar can do as he comes across the line. It is stunning from Isaac Hadjar as he becomes the first driver into the 1:21, so 1:21.987 from Isaac Hadjar, the fastest man out on track at the moment. Alex Albon goes a 10th.5 slower than the Racing Bull. Albon sitting pretty in 8th place in the driver's standings. That's 2nd place here. Here comes Lando Norris to just completely obliterate the lap time set by Isaac Hadjar. He's nearly 4 tenths of a second quicker, and it's a 1:21.621 as Oscar Piastri goes a couple attempts shy of his teammate's lap time, despite a fastest final sector. Here comes Gabriel Bortoleto to go 6th fastest in the Stakes Sauber car. Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin just coming around the final sector now. So it is Alonso, Lawson, Antonelli, and Russell have yet to set flying lap times. Antonelli just making his way around turn 5, Russell turn 4. So the Mercedes car's out on track as Fernando Alonso goes back to 3rd fastest, and it's looking very similar to the end of free practice 1. Norris, Piastri, Alonso, Hadjar are top 4. Piastri, though, dropping a position down, and Lando Norris the quickest of the McLarens at the moment until Max Verstappen comes back around in the first sector anyway. He is purple through there, a 29.8 for Verstappen through the first part of the lap, and just making his way towards the back of Lando Norris's McLaren. The Lando Norris McLaren gets out of the way, and Verstappen through turn 8. Verstappen carrying that speed through turn 10, looping around, and then turn 11 effectively, well, is flat inside of these Formula One cars. The grip that they have on the tarmac, and he is 18 thousandths of a second slower than Lando Norris through the middle stint of the lap. Max Verstappen is going to be very close to the top of the timing sheets indeed. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton also continuing on to do another flying lap, but let's keep an eye on Verstappen as he comes around the final corner. Verstappen looking to go to the top. and is indeed the fastest man for now. It is a purple final sector that sends Max Verstappen a 10th quicker than Lando Norris. I'm not sure why I'm doing this voice. Piastri drops down to 3rd place. Alonso 4th. Hadjar still 5th. Charles Leclerc looking to improve for Ferrari, overtakes the McLaren of Oscar Piastri, who's lining up to do another flying lap soon. But Charles Leclerc comes across the line, does improve to 7th fastest. And Hamilton coming across the line to get himself out of that bottom 5. But it wasn't a sublime final sector from Hamilton, so it's only good enough for 14th for now. Carlos Sainz improves dramatically to go up to 6th place, which puts Lewis Hamilton within a position of going back into the drop zone. And there he is. Esteban Ocon goes 9th fastest and puts the 7-time world champion back down into the bottom 5. And it does feel like over the last few race weekends, we've seen Lewis Hamilton teetering on the bottom 5 and on the brink of going out of another qualifying. Lance Stroll 17th. Franco Colapinto now displaces Lance Stroll, who drops down to 18th. Antonelli and Russell yet to set a flying lap time. Kimi Antonelli is not going to set a representative time as he comes across the start-finish line, maybe using another lap to just prepare his tyres because he's 14 seconds off the pace. I'm not sure that's where the Mercedes car really does sit, as Lando Norris then goes back to the top of the timing sheets by a 10th of a second. It's a purple final sector for Lando Norris that leads to a purple flying lap. Piastri has gone quickest of anybody through the first part of the lap, though, and is holding on through the final part. Let's see what Piastri can do as he comes across the line, and it's getting hotter and hotter at the top of the timing sheets right now. Oscar Piastri goes a 10th quicker than his teammate. Verstappen, Piastri, Norris, our 3 championship rivals, all taking chunks out of one another and nobody wanting to relent. Remember, this is only the first part of qualifying. Piastri, Norris and Verstappen fighting for effectively nothing here, really, apart from the fact that they have that mental state, right? They are in it to win it. They are going absolutely hell for leather to try and show their rivals that they are here to win this weekend. Kimi Antonelli, though, flying around in his Mercedes car. And Antonelli, very close. It's a pretty decent first and second sector time. Antonelli's going to get him outside of that bottom 5 by a considerable chunk. Oh, no, maybe not. I thought it was a little bit quicker than that from Antonelli, if I'm honest with you, but the final sector wasn't great. And he drops into 15th place, does Kimi Antonelli. The pressure on, especially as George Russell, his teammate, is going to drop him into that bottom 5. Russell goes 5th fastest of anybody. So it is Antonelli, Gasly, Lawson, Hamilton and Colapinto, the 5 drivers that need to improve. Antonelli and Hamilton on the brink of dropping out of another qualifying early. Of course, Kimi Antonelli was able to do a dream drive in Vegas, went from 16th place to the podium places after the disqualifications for the 2 McLarens. But I don't think he'll want to start down in the bottom 5 once again. Fernando Alonso is on a flying lap at Aston Martin. We're keeping an eye on him. He was 3rd fastest, remember, in free practice 1. The Aston Martin looking very good on the soft compound tyre. Can Alonso continue to do the same on the medium? Comes across the line and does indeed go quickest. Not fastest in any particular sector, but it doesn't matter when you're fastest overall. He had at 100th of a second on Oscar Piastri, and the Aston Martin's raw pace this weekend looking to come into play. Liam Lawson looking to improve. And Antonelli down in 16th place. Gasly 17th, Lawson 18th, Hamilton 19th, and Franco Colapinto in 20th spot. This could be very tasty indeed. Can't stop Fernando. He is absolutely flying. He was 3rd fastest in free practice 1. Alonso top of a sprint qualifying again. He was top of sprint qualifying as well last time around in Brazil, was it? Or was it the US where he topped? No, it was the wet Brazil qualifying where he was top of the timing sheets. Oh no, it was dry during the sprint qualifying though, wasn't it? It's been 3 weeks. I've forgotten. Max Verstappen sets the fastest first sector time. As I say, these three at the top: Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, fighting for that fastest lap time on the medium tires, and I think just trying to keep themselves in that mental zone because they are all through. Like, there is no way that those three are going to drop out in this first qualifying session, and yet they continue to improve their lap times. Lewis Hamilton, a poor first sector, by the way. We're keeping an eye on the Ferrari car. Better through the middle part of the lap. Let's keep an eye on Hamilton, actually, as Verstappen goes fastest of anybody again by a tenth of a second. Hamilton now coming down towards turn 16 behind Fernando Alonso. Liam Lawson races across the line and goes 9th fastest. Hamilton comes across the line and it's only 15th fastest for Lewis Hamilton, and Charles Leclerc is actually 14th fastest behind him. Leclerc gets up into 6th place. Isaac Hadjar now in trouble. He's in 14th. Carlos Sainz in 13th as well. Here comes Yuki Tsunoda. He goes 5th fastest in the Red Bull. Pierre Gasly comes across the line, can't improve. Gasly is going to stay in that bottom 5. Antonelli does improve, though, and that puts Lewis Hamilton into the bottom 5, and Lewis Hamilton out of qualifying. Isaac Hadjar, then, the man on the bubble. Nico Hülkenberg is improving, and actually it's just gone fastest of anybody in the middle sector, Nico Hülkenberg, in his Stake Sauber car. Here comes Ollie Behrman and Esteban Ocon. They get themselves out of that bottom 5, so Hadjar does need to improve, and does. That puts his teammate Liam Lawson down into the bottom 5. And here comes Nico Hülkenberg to split the McLarens. Hülkenberg 4th fastest of anybody. George Russell under pressure continues to improve, though, and goes 7th fastest overall. Alex Albon gets himself out of the bottom 5 and up into 14th place. So Lance Stroll and Liam Lawson drop down into it. And Hamilton and Gasly and Colapinto will join those two. So it is Lance Stroll, Liam Lawson, Lewis Hamilton again out in Q1. And then the two Alpines behind: Pierre Gasly 19th place and Franco Colapinto down in 20th place. My goodness me. If you are a Lewis Hamilton fan, what is happening? What on earth can the man do inside of that Scuderia Ferrari car? He is miserable. He is hating his life. And he is now out of a Q1 once again. Max Verstappen, quickest of anybody in that session, though. Fernando Alonso, 2nd place. Oscar Piastri, 3rd. Hülkenberg splitting the McLarens, going 4th fastest. And Lando Norris in the top 5. Hadjar, Russell, Sainz, Tsunoda, and Behrman would have done good enough. Oh. And I think Lewis Hamilton starting his final flying lap, it was all a little bit scruffy. And I think the Ferraris tripping over one another again. And Hamilton on the radio, the car won't go any quicker. Ouch. Another stab to the heart of Lewis Hamilton inside of that Ferrari. Already said it's his worst season in Formula One, and it just feels like it is getting even worse every weekend. Hamilton once again out in Q1 and will start 18th on the grid, 10 places away from scoring any kind of points for the Scuderia. Remember, they sit 4th in the Constructors' Championship as well now, behind Mercedes and Red Bull, a Red Bull team that has basically one driver who has scored all of their points this season. Wow. It is just absolute nightmare fuel if you are a Ferrari fan right now. Antonelli snuck his way through in 11th place, though. He'll continue on. George Russell, 7th place as well. The Mercedes car's not looking as quick as we were maybe expecting them to be. And we're waiting for Q2 to get underway. The medium tyres will be back on the cars once again. So if you are new to sprint qualifying, it is still fairly new to all of us. The sprint qualifying rules change, it seems like, every season. The sprint qualifying this time around, you have to use the medium tyres in Q1, followed up by another set of medium tyres in Q2. Only if you get through to Q3 are you allowed to jump onto the soft compound of tyre. Ferrari's car is not even at RB and Williams level. It does feel like that at the minute, doesn't it? Albon right behind him, but Carlos Sainz fairly comfortable. Hadjar up in 6th place. I mean, Liam Lawson is out, but so is Lewis Hamilton. So behind an RB, he does start. Nico Hulkenberg also putting in the shift. I was a little bit worried about the Haas cars, if I'm honest with you. The two Haas cars did not look like they had much going for them when it came to free practice 1 earlier today. But they've managed to both make it through. And predictably, maybe, the two Alpine cars have fallen by the wayside. Like, they were also very, very slow in free practice 1, and Gasly and Colapinto not looking very happy inside of that car at all. But they are out of it. Lance Stroll is maybe the most disappointing. Well, I was going to say most disappointing. Lewis Hamilton is definitely the most disappointing. But considering the Aston Martin looked like it had some pace this weekend, and we've got Fernando Alonso on the front row of the grid as it stands, Lance Stroll dropping out in 16th place is pretty detrimental to the Canadian, although he hasn't made many positive moves this season, you could say. Lance Stroll. Fernando Alonso, though, through. Antonelli, Bortoleto, Leclerc, Albon, and Ocon, the 5 drivers that need to improve. 10 minutes go back on the clock then. The medium tyres getting put back onto the cars as Lewis Hamilton takes the long walk down the pit lane as he is going to be out of sprint qualifying, and I'm sure making his way back to the hotel sooner rather than later. It wasn't a push lap where Lewis Hamilton had that chaos over the line. But, I mean, the lap itself also wasn't anything to really write home about. Why is half the grid under investigation? Oh, sorry, yeah. I should show you. So, basically, during sprint qualifying in particular, they will all get a maximum delta time. Like, basically, everybody will get a maximum delta time investigation. And it's because there's so many cars out on track, and they're making space for one another, that the maximum delta, like, almost never gets actually, like, followed during Q1. It's one of those weird things. If you've logged into the streams before, you'll see it at the end of every single Q1 session, and they'll all get nothing. So, like, there you go. No further investigation, no further investigation. Like, there'll just be nothing that comes of any of this. Like, literally every single driver has got it. Or almost every single driver has got it. There'll be nothing that comes of it. Bit of a weird one, though. It's because they have a maximum time that they're allowed. I think because of the way it's, like, monitored, as you come out of the pits, it also counts it. And because they sit in the pits for so long, it's like a weird thing. 10:49 here in Pakistan. Thank you for watching in Pakistan. Appreciate it. We do get viewers from all over the place. Appreciate you all stopping by. It's very, very kind of you. If you could hit the like button on the stream, that'd be absolutely amazing. Maybe subscribe to the channel as well. We're trying to get 15,000 subscribers before the end of the season. No, 150,000 subscribers before the end of the season. And then over on my podcast, Crash Happy, where it's me, Mr. D, Mr. T, Mr. V, Dan No Skill, Formula Duck, and Mr. Pulse, we are trying to get 15,000 subscribers over on that channel before the end of the season as well. Let's zone back in then as George Russell decides to be the first man to come out in Q2 here. Clearly not happy with where he was in the traffic in Q1. He wants to set the precedent this time around. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri just coming to the end of the pit lane. Verstappen out already as well. Tsunoda joining his teammate. So we are going to see some flying laps coming in very soon. Let's watch George Russell as he's actually going to go for a second warm-up lap. I was going to say maybe about to set a flying lap time, but he was weaving around as he crossed the start-finish line, so did not look to be running at full capacity. Pakistan mention. It is. It was. Track is probably the worst for Ferrari. True, but like still though, dropping out in Q1 when you're Lewis Hamilton is not a good look. Here we are then. Max Verstappen, faster than George Russell through the first sector, as you would imagine. George Russell not on a flying lap yet. Verstappen is once again going to be the driver to set the precedent for everybody else. Only 14 cars out on track with him this time around, though. 5 drivers already out. Lance Stroll, Liam Lawson, Lewis Hamilton, and Pierre Gasly, along with Franco Colapinto, already out of qualifying. Nico Hülkenberg was the quickest man of anybody through the middle part of the lap in Q1. Let's see if the Stake Sauber car can do that again. He's just coming to the end of Q2. Not quite, as Yuki Tsunoda actually sits as the fastest man through the middle section of the lap. Max Verstappen comes across the line for a 1:21.295. The track is also going to be coming towards these drivers, rubbering in as they go. Charles Leclerc is now the fastest man in the middle part of the lap. He takes that from Yuki Tsunoda. 27.538 as Lando Norris goes quickest of anybody through the first part of the lap. Gabriel Bortoleto goes 4th fastest overall and slowest of anybody to set a real lap time. In fact, Bortoleto over a second behind his teammate as Charles Leclerc comes across the line to go 0.2 of a second slower than Verstappen. Really struggling through that final sector, though, Charles Leclerc, just battling that car through turn 16. Would have definitely cost him a little bit of time. You can see the difference in the final sector there between Leclerc and Verstappen as Oscar Piastri takes the fastest middle part of the lap, and Russell has taken the fastest first part of the lap away from Lando Norris by 100th of a second. Lando Norris, though, coming towards the end of his flying lap and does go quickest, a 1:20.956 is 3 and a bit tenths quicker than Max Verstappen's lap time. Piastri can only go second fastest by 0.5 tenth of a second. So Piastri are 1:21 dead. George Russell, quickest in the first sector, a 27.7 from Russell through the middle part of the lap as well. Looking a lot more stable in this run this time around. George Russell clearly wasn't happy with the car in Q1 and goes 3rd fastest of anybody. Still 0.3 of a second off Norris and Piastri. But in terms of the rankings, a lot higher than he was. Isaac Hadjar has just gone quickest of anybody through the middle part of the lap and goes 5th fastest overall. As Kimi Antonelli and Fernando Alonso, the only drivers yet to set a flying lap time. Here comes Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. He stays 14th fastest. Clearly wasn't a full flying lap from Fernando Alonso. He's not 8 seconds off the pace. And Max Verstappen on the radio. The car is bouncing like crazy. And GP will be on the radio to everybody else within the team to try and get that sorted for Verstappen as soon as possible. Still looking like the Dutchman will likely get through to Q3. He's 4th fastest at the moment. Hadjar behind him in 5th. Sainz, Leclerc, Tsunoda, Hülkenberg and Behrman inside of the top 10. It is Ocon, Albon, Bortoleto, Alonso and Antonelli who need to improve with just over 4 minutes of this session left to play out. Norris still the quickest on a 1:29.56. Piastri 0.05 of a second slower. And Lewis Hamilton in the interview pen and not really giving too much information, to be honest. Just dejected, annoyed, frustrated. The words that we continue to use for Lewis Hamilton at the moment inside of that Ferrari car. And not happy with the pace of the Scuderia at all. Max always complains about the car. True. I mean, he knows what he wants and he likes what he likes. Does Max Verstappen? I think he just tells the team how it is a lot of the time. Kimi Antonelli going around now. 15th fastest. Yet to see a comprehensive lap time from the Italian. See if he can get himself off the bottom of the timing sheets. Antonelli, fairly decent first and second sectors, but the third sector coming to an end now and goes 7th fastest overall. 0.02 of a second slower than Carlos Sainz ahead of him, but slots in ahead of Charles Leclerc and pushes Ollie Behrman down into the bottom 5. His teammate from last year, of course, Bearman and Antonelli in Formula 2 side by side with one another before both stepping up into Formula 1 this season. Max Verstappen starts another flying lap. The sparks flying off the back of that Red Bull car. Going around turn 1, dealing with a little bit of traffic. Max Verstappen. George Russell pulls to one side. Ollie Bearman also ahead of Verstappen now. We'll have to shift out of the way of the reigning world champion as Max Verstappen really attacks turn 4 and turn 5 inside of that Red Bull. Let's see what this first sector time is like for Max Verstappen. It's a 29.746 from the Dutchman. Really attacking this lap now, Max Verstappen, on those medium tyres. Medium tyres that have already done 4 laps of this Lusail circuit. Esteban Ocon and Carlos Sainz ahead of him to deal with. Lando Norris also just leaving a little bit of a gap to Fernando Alonso ahead. Oscar Piastri joins the train as well. Norris is going to launch himself into a flying lap. Oscar Piastri is going to be right behind his teammate. So let's see what the two McLarens do as they both come across the start-finish line to start flying laps with 1.5 minutes left to go in this qualifying session. Here comes Verstappen. Is he going to improve? He does, and he goes 3rd fastest. He's within 1/10 of a second of Lando Norris's previous lap time. Let's see if Lando Norris can improve upon it, though, and if Piastri can maybe steal top spot from Lando Norris once again. They're coming around turn 5 together at the moment. Lando Norris ahead of Piastri. Lando Norris at 35 dead, so Norris is going to give up on that lap. Must have been a mistake from the current championship leader. Piastri, though, goes on a 29.757 from the Australian. Tsunoda and Alonso also improving their lap times. Alonso down in 15th place at the moment. Was 3rd fastest, remember, Fernando Alonso in free practice. Also on the front row in Q1 earlier on. Alonso in 15th place now, but looking to improve with 20 seconds left to go on the clock. Where can Fernando Alonso slot himself? It's 7th fastest and not guaranteed to be through there, Fernando Alonso. Hajar, Sainz, Antonelli all behind will be looking to improve their position inside of the top 10. Hülkenberg, Bearman, Ocon, Albon and Bortoleto, the 5 drivers that need to improve. And there's a big amount of dust that has been kicked up in the final corner as Isaac Hajar Carlos Sainz, thought it was Hajar. Carlos Sainz coming across the line and going 5th fastest. Isaac Hajar has gone quickest of anybody in the middle part of the lap, is what I was seeing. Isaac Hajar coming around the final couple of corners now. Max Verstappen coming to the end and coming back into the pits. Ollie Bearman continuing on. Can Bearman get himself off bottom? He can indeed. It's actually Kimi Antonelli who needs to improve the most. Antonelli versus Hajar to the line. Antonelli cannot get himself out of that bottom 5. And Antonelli and Bearman, as we talked about before, the 2 teammates in Formula 2 last year, they're going to start side by side. And Kimi Antonelli has jumped up as Isaac Hajar has had a lap time deleted. Isaac Hajar has exceeded track limits and has had a lap time deleted. The Frenchman then dropping into the bottom 5. And Kimi Antonelli can breathe a sigh of relief. He gets himself through into the top 10 just about. Wow. And there was the mistake from Lando Norris as he went through a little bumpy road on the gravel path. That would be why he gave up on his lap. And there was Nico Hülkenberg kicking up the dust at the final corner. That's why we didn't see him improve on his lap time either. So it is both of the Haas cars in Bearman and Ocon, both of the Stake Sauber cars in Bortoleto and Hülkenberg, alongside Isaac Hajar, who drop out in this second part of qualifying. And Fernando Alonso not happy on the radio with all the cars going into turn 1 together, as Yuki Tsunoda was also fighting with Fernando Alonso for track position. And Tsunoda did eventually get past Fernando. Both of them managed to make it through. We have to say, Yuki Tsunoda getting himself up in 5th place and actually slotting himself into a possible point scoring position for the sprint race tomorrow. He can stay there in SQ3. Norris and Piastri were the quickest once again, but Verstappen there in 3rd place. All 3 of those cars within a 10th of a second. And this is what I've been saying about those 3. Like, they have all been going hell for leather. Like, Lando Norris taking a run through the gravel. That is because he was pushing that McLaren car to the limit, even though he knew he was safe, because he wants that mental gain on the other 2 behind him. Lando Norris goes into the final part of qualifying, the fastest of the 3 so far. Russell then behind him 4th place, as he normally is. George Russell, best of the rest outside of the the McLaren and Red Bull of Verstappen. Like, George Russell's been so consistent this year, and that's why the driver standings looks as it does. Yuki Tsunoda in 5th, Carlos Sainz was 6th, Charles Leclerc 7th, Albon 8th, Fernando Alonso 9th, Kimi Antonelli in 10th. So we do have 2 McLaren cars, 2 Mercedes cars, 2 Red Bulls, as you'd maybe expect, 2 Williams cars inside of the top 10. Just the 1 Ferrari and the 1 Aston Martin have made their way through. And in fact, the other Ferrari and the other Aston Martin dropped out in the first part of qualifying. Hadjar joined Lawson out. Hadjar will start 11th, Behrman 12th, Bortoleto 13th. So little rookie trio in 11th, 12th, and 13th place. And then Nico Hulkenberg, who certainly is not a rookie, starting in 14th. Esteban Ocon 15th. They were the 5 drivers that dropped out in Q2. The 5 drivers that dropped out in Q1, Lance Stroll, Liam Lawson, Lewis Hamilton, Pierre Gasly, and Franco Colapinto. That's right, I said Lewis Hamilton once again out in the first part of qualifying. Goodness gracious me. But we're not here to talk about Lewis Hamilton. We are here for one more round of qualifying to see who is going to start on the front row of the grid. And another chunk of investigations coming through, and they're going to be investigated after. There are 3 cars into turn 1. Crazy, says Fernando Alonso. Not happy with the amount of traffic that he had inside of the Aston Martin. And Yuki Tsunoda trying to get past Fernando Alonso. Fernando Alonso doing a very good job to defend from the Japanese driver. Not really what they should be doing during qualifying, though. And Isaac Hadjar dropped out of qualifying, and that was where he went just a little bit wide. Isaac Hadjar. It's the faintest of things. It wasn't by much, but Isaac Hadjar does indeed drop out of qualifying. Not very happy at all. Oh, that radio message, not what you want to hear from Isaac Hadjar. He was given that we are okay, we are P10, and then sorry, P11. Hadjar indeed out. Norris and Piastri, Verstappen are top 3, as you would expect, going into the final couple of rounds of the season. Those 3 at the top of the championship and at the top of the timing sheets so far this weekend. George Russell, 4th fastest. Tsunoda, Sainz, Leclerc, Albon, Alonso, and Antonelli still in the mix then, as we put 8 minutes on the clock. And we have one more run around before we get our starting grid for tomorrow's sprint race. Kimi Antonelli wants to be the first man out on track. He's already made his way down to the end of the pit lane. He was 10th fastest and could breathe a sigh of relief because Isaac Hadjar had out-qualified him until that lap time was deleted from the Frenchman. So it was very, very tight to Kimi Antonelli dropping out of qualifying. But he is indeed there. Incident involving Verstappen, Tsunoda, Hulkenberg, Bortoleto, Sainz, Norris, Piastri, Hadjar, Behrman, Russell, and Antonelli will be investigated after the session. But it's for maximum delta time, so nothing will come of it. Be interesting to see what they do about the cars literally wrestling for position. Fernando Alonso and Yuki Tsunoda, the main culprits by the looks of things, fighting for track position, whether they look into any of that and whether the teams kind of prepare for that a little bit more. It's been a busy couple of qualifying sessions. People have struggled to find that gap in between the other cars. And again, they're going to have to do this all over again tomorrow. Another qualifying session awaits them. At least they can all go onto the soft compound tyre this time around. And of course, in full qualifying tomorrow, Antonelli, Russell, Verstappen, Tsunoda, Sainz out on track. Fernando Alonso making his way to the end of the pit lane with 7 minutes to go in SQ3. Charles Leclerc is the next man to join the circuit. Oscar Piastri making his way out to the man who was leading the championship from Saudi Arabia all the way up until a couple of races ago in Mexico. And the man who took it off him, Lando Norris, the main man at McLaren at the moment, is making his way down the pit lane, although Alex Albon sneaks between the two McLarens, so the Williams car between Piastri and Norris at the moment. Here we are then. Get your predictions in now. Which order are those top three going to sit in? Will someone else be able to join them? Kimi Antonelli, hoping that he'll be able to improve on what he did in SQ2. Now he's on the soft compound tyre. Coming around turn 1, the Italian attacking this Lusail track. Here comes George Russell as well, his teammate just behind. It's going to be the two Mercedes cars to set the standard for everybody else. Max Verstappen, the championship, still in play after that double disqualification for McLaren last time around. He's going to be third across the start-finish line. Tsunoda and Sainz then behind him. Fernando Alonso just coming around the final corner. George Russell quicker than his teammate through the first part of the lap. It's purple for George Russell at the moment. Verstappen, though, making his way around turn 5. We'll see if the Red Bull can snatch that from him. He cannot. George Russell remains the fastest man through the first part of the lap. Kimi Antonelli, 57.1 as he completes Sector 2. George Russell not able to beat his teammate through the middle part of the lap, though. So Antonelli has the benefit in the second sector. George Russell the first. Let's see which of the two Mercedes cars can conquer the final part of the lap and come out on top as Kimi Antonelli sets the time at a 1:20.9. George Russell, a 1:20.5. Just a ridiculous 0.4 of a second between the two Mercedes cars. George Russell turning up the heat all of a sudden on the soft compound tyre. And that's the thing. As soon as the soft compound tyre comes into play in qualifying here, and Max Verstappen not happy at all, bouncing around like an idiot, some porpoising happening, and Verstappen struggling. Tsunoda goes third fastest of anybody. Carlos Sainz then goes fourth fastest. Verstappen will get another run at it, but he's not very happy inside of the car as Oscar Piastri goes quickest of anybody through the middle part of the lap. Lando Norris going quickest through the first part of the lap as well. So Piastri going for it. Lando Norris, a good stint behind his teammate, though. So Piastri will set the time well before Norris does. Here comes Piastri. It is fastest of anybody so far. He's fastest in the middle sector and final sector. Lando Norris is within 1/10 of a second of his teammate, though. It was a 1:20.241 from Piastri. Here comes Lando Norris through the final part of the lap. Round 15 he goes. Then the short straight to 16. Round 16, get on the throttle as soon as you possibly can, Lando. It's going to be close between him and Piastri has it by 0.04 of a second. Lando Norris, quickest in the final sector, but it was that middle sector where Lando Norris lost a couple attempts to his teammate, and that puts Piastri on the top step for now. George Russell was third fastest, Leclerc fourth fastest, Albon, Sainz fifth and sixth, Fernando Alonso in 7th, Antonelli 8th, Yuki Tsunoda 9th, and Max Verstappen without a lap time. As he bounces around on the gravel, Max Verstappen just lost a little bit of grip. Couldn't quite get those soft compound tyres to work for him, and that car bobbling around like crazy. Verstappen will get another run at it. Antonelli and Russell coming into the pits. They need to be quick on the mark here. Everybody's going to be in and out fairly swiftly, I'd imagine. It's whether you want to use another set of soft compound tyres, though. Piastri and Norris, are they going to play it safe, or do you use another set of soft compound tyres? Got to remember the softs might be useful in the race. Softs also going to be crucial for tomorrow's qualifying as well. Max Verstappen continues on to try and improve on his lap, a 1:45.7. Not really a representative lap time of what Verstappen can do. And Verstappen on the radio. You cannot give up track position. Turn 2 and turn 4 has started to understeer a lot for whatever reason. I mean, he's got a lot of clear track ahead of him as Verstappen. They don't want him to give up track position. I mean, Yuki Tsunoda is the closest man to him behind, so Tsunoda, I'm sure, won't cause Max Verstappen any kind of issue. Antonelli and Alonso, then the closest cars behind that. Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, in a little bit of a gaggle, actually. Leclerc, Piastri, Albon, and Russell all fighting for track position. Then Lando Norris has come out of the back of that group, and Lando Norris actually might struggle to get to the end of the lap on time. In fact, Alex Albon has slowed down massively, and in fact even let Lando Norris by as Alex Albon. So Albon maybe wanting to be the last man across the start-finish line, although it's going to be very close indeed. There's only a minute left of the session, and I'm imagining a lot of these drivers are going to slow down considerably in the final sector to give themselves a little bit of wiggle room. Piastri and Leclerc vying for position through turn 10. But Carlos Sainz, Leclerc, Piastri, Russell, all very close to one another. Albon also now right under the rear wing of Lando Norris. Max Verstappen is going to start his flying lap first. Tsunoda then in. Antonelli third across the start-finish line. Alonso now coming by as well. Let's see what Verstappen has got on these soft compound tyres then. Everybody deciding to keep the soft compound tyres the same by the looks of things. And is a tenth of a bit off the pace through the first sector, Max Verstappen. So not looking incredibly competitive through that first part of the lap. Needs to make it up in the second part if he can. Tsunoda also has improved in the first part of the lap, but no purple sectors to note as Kimi Antonelli also improves, but not quickest. And Lando Norris comes across the start-finish line just about. Alex Albon actually jumped in front of Lando Norris once again. Oscar Piastri's got a nice little bit of road to run into. But Lando Norris could find himself in a little bit of trouble here because he's going to be right in the wake and dirty air of Alex Albon's Williams car. He had to come across the line when he did, but he's not going to be happy about the situation that he's in. Alex Albon right ahead of him. Alex Albon continuing on, and Max Verstappen only P4 for the Red Bull. Here comes Yuki Tsunoda, goes quicker. P3 for Yuki Tsunoda. And that is a very good qualifying from the Japanese driver. Kimi Antonelli only goes 6th fastest at the moment. Here comes Fernando Alonso, goes 3rd fastest. George Russell also looking to improve as he goes fastest of anybody through the first sector. Charles Leclerc, it's a scruffy middle part of the lap for the Ferrari. Here comes George Russell. Charles Leclerc stays 9th. Here comes George Russell and goes fastest. George Russell goes to the top of the timing sheets. Here's George Russell, who is on sprint pole until Piastri takes it from him. Piastri by 0.03 of a second. Here comes Alex Albon. No, doesn't improve from 10th. Here comes Lando Norris. No, doesn't improve from 3rd. Piastri stays at the top. George Russell slots into 2nd. Lando Norris, our championship leader, down in 3rd. Alonso, Tsunoda, Verstappen down in 6th place. Kimi Antonelli, Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, and Alex Albon will round out the top 10 positions going into the sprint race tomorrow. That is our grid set, ladies and gentlemen, for the sprint. My goodness me. Let's quickly run through it. Here's Piastri, top of the timing sheets, a 1:20.0. and he starts on pole position for the first time in a long time. It feels like Piastri without a podium place in the last 7 races after leading the championship for the majority of the season. George Russell nearly snagged a pole position, but it's a front row start for the Mercedes man in second. And then Lando Norris. Oh, it was a mistake at turn 16 from Lando. That's what cost him. And he stayed third fastest overall. Lando Norris will start from the second row of the grid. Alonso, fourth fastest in the Aston Martin, has looked insanely quick, Fernando Alonso, and continues that streak into Q3. Tsunoda and Verstappen will start side by side. I'm not sure Yuki Tsunoda will put up too much of a fight in letting Max Verstappen. So Verstappen effectively starts in 5th place. Kimi Antonelli in 7th place. The Italian was almost out in Q2, but managed to just sneak it through into Q3. Starts 7th place. And Carlos Sainz, best of the rest. Well, midfield car, Fernando Alonso actually best of the rest, but outside of that, Carlos Sainz in 8th place, Charles Leclerc in 9th, and Alex Albon in 10th. Hadjar, Behrman, Bortoletto, Hulkenberg, and Ocon were the 5 drivers that we lost in Q2. Stroll, Lawson, Hamilton, Gasly, and Colapinto, the 5 drivers to drop out in Q1. They are our 20 drivers for tomorrow's sprint race here in Qatar. 8 points up for grabs, and a possible championship swing in the favor of Oscar Piastri if he stays where he is right now. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you could leave a like on the stream as you leave, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well. We're trying to hit 150,000 subscribers. 15,000 subscribers over on Crash Happy. Also a link down in the description for that. And if you haven't checked out this week's video on the channel, I would massively appreciate it. Like, there's 700 of you in the YouTube chat, even more in the Shorts chat. If you all hit that link, go over and watch the video. It would do a massive favor for the channel. 10 minutes of your life, and I promise it absolutely helps more than you could imagine. Thank you guys so much. We will see you again tomorrow, where we'll be live twice for the sprint race first, and then the qualifying once again, but this time for the main event, the Grand Prix qualifying. I'll see you there.